Thanks, Phoebe. We were together on the small hospital bed. A few hours later, our son, who was just several minutes old, slept on his daddy's bare chest. I nestled up against his side and touched my baby's soft cheek with my thumb. I was already battling sleep, exhausted from pushing out an almost 10-pound baby, and my husband's warm body next to me made my eyes feel heavier by the second baby. Jungkook said softly, drawing my attention, "Get some rest. We'll still be here when you wake up." I smiled warmly as Jungkook used the sigh we chose for our son's name, and my heart fluttered in my chest as I saw my husband and son interact. They later looking so comfortable on his daddy's broad chest. I was about to fall asleep when a nurse entered, offering us a nice smile as she witnessed the intimate moment. Sorry, Dads, I'm stealing the adorable baby for a few days. It wouldn't take long, I promise, she said, and when I explained that she intended, Jungkook reluctantly handed up, Fong up. Is it for the hearing test? Jungkook asked just as she was ready to walk away, startled me once again by saying it out loud. The nurse nodded. Yes, among others, she said before exiting the room. Jungkook immediately tensed up, bit his lower lip, and gave me a concerned look. No matter what the outcome is, it will be fine, love. We have discussed this before, I said, snuggling even closer to Jungkook on the little bed, knowing how much he needed it right now. I know, but I'm still hoping he wouldn't be deaf, Jungkook said as he ran one of his hands down my back. You should really try to get some sleep. You look worn out. I am, I said with a glance, making myself comfortable against Jungkook's side. I love you. I love you too. Fong wasn't returned to the room for about an hour, and I was awake when the nurse handed our baby back to Jungkook. Is everything okay? I asked, my voice a little strained from the scream I let out during labor and delivery. When she looked at me, the nurse had an old expression on her face. I'm afraid that the only doctors are permitted to discuss the results. She said, waiting for me to reply the information to Jungkook before continuing. The doctor will be with you shortly to discuss it. She left again shortly after, and when I returned back to look at Jungkook, tears were slowly running down his face. He is stiff. You don't know that, Jungkook, I said as I reached over to wipe Jungkook's cheek while he clenched our son as if he was afraid someone would came along and kidnap him. It's the way she was looking at us this, he said with pity. Something must be wrong, baby. I was interrupted when the doctor walked in. He had the same sad expression as the nurse who had just left. Dad, I'm afraid I have some bad news to share, he said as he sat down in one of the plastic chairs, linking the white wall which he had pulled closer to the bed. I am not going to keep you wondering much longer, Sauce. Fong is deaf. We gave him 2 hearing tests and he didn't respond to either. We can perform more testing to see if it's genetic or caused by other circumstances, but given that deafness runs in one side of the family, we can almost certainly guess the answer. But he always reacted to our voices while I was pregnant. I quickly said, surely it wasn't coincidental every time. The doctor gave a small shrug, but because they produce vibration in the flawed. Babies in general can sometimes react to sounds from inside the bulb. That's what I'm guessing he was reacting to. Jungkook restrained expression on his face as he watched, silently curling to his chest as if exchanged a few more words with the doctor. He remained silent and stoic as the man walked away, giving us one last sad smile before leaving. Jungkook, don't. As I stared at my husband beside me, my heart began to tighten. I was afraid Jungkook was blaming himself since his face was blank and emotionless. Our son appeared to be particularly little, collide up and sleeping soundly on his daddy's breast. Once more, Jungkook, please, I said again, talk to me. I don't want to talk about it right now, he said, one of his hands coming up to stroke chubby cheeks. I know you are tired and it's almost midnight. You should try to sleep then. I knew I should drop it for now since his expression didn't change while he spoke. I winced slightly as I in a small hospital bed next to Jungkook, trying to make myself as comfortable as possible. Wake up if he does, I said, waiting for Jungkook to nod before closing my eyes. My thoughts wandered for a few minutes while I listened to my husband's steady breathing. But sleep came fast, and the entire day of labor and pain catch up with me. When I wake up, it was mid light outside, and Jungkook was seated in an uncomfortable medical chair by the window, looking out at his phone rather than in the bed next to me. When he noticed me sitting up, he looked up and smiled tiredly. How are you feeling? He asked as he stood up and walked over to my side, kissing my forehead. Slept okay? I'm fine, just a bit sore, I said, returning his smile. Where is Jungkook motioned to a small plastic coat on the other side of the room, and as my gaze fell on our baby, I instantly grinned. Did he get a good night's sleep? I didn't hear him cry once, I said with a slight frown. No, I brought him out to the hallway a couple of times when he became fussy so he wouldn't wake you up. A nurse also came with the bottle around for 4 a.m. and I got to feed him. He's been sleeping ever since. You should have woken up me, lovey, so we could have taken turns. You must have not gotten much sleep yourself, I said, shaking my head slightly in displeasure as I watched Jungkook move over to the and left. Jungkook returned to the bed and gently placed into my waiting arms, smiling as the baby appeared unfazed by the moment. Needed it more, he said as he took a seat next to my legs on the bed. I didn't think I would have been able to sleep anyway. Love, I said while looking at Jungkook instead of our baby. He was looking down at me, clamber than he has been ever the night before. I'm trying to wrap my head around it properly, Jungkook said, reaching over to stroke our baby's soft head. I just want what's best for him, so do I, baby. But we can't do anything about this apart from giving him all our love and affection, I said, returning my gaze to Fong, who was a little version of my husband and was lying in my arms. You know this isn't your fault, right? That I don't blame you even one bit for any of this. For a few moments, Jungkook smiled, same stone, biting his lower lip before nodding. I know, but it still hurts. I know, baby, I said while placing one of my hands on top of Jungkook's, which was on the back. But in my opinion, at the very least, you will be able to teach him all your tricks, which will make it easier for you to bond with him. I'm confident and everything will work out in the end, love. Thanks, POV. Frong and I were both drenched, declared healthy enough to be discharged from the hospital the next day. And Jungkook drew our little family home. He kept stealing glances in the rearview mirror, beaming as he saw me making funny faces at our baby, who were fully awake in the car seat. When we got home, the house was peacefully silent, and we smiled when we saw a note from my mother-in-law on the side of the table. No, the fridge is packed with there is lasagna and they are waiting to be heated up. Your mom and I will pay you a visit tomorrow morning to meet the little one. Call me if you needed anything. Love you guys, mom. As I read it over Jungkook's shoulder, I grinned. Although I was sure both of our moms were inching to meet, I was pleased they were giving us some time to settle in as a family before invading our personal space. I was pulled away from my thoughts by a faint cooing noise, and I looked down at the car seat Jungkook had just placed a floor where was Frank was startling to fuss. I think he might be hungry, I said to Jungkook as I bent down to careful and box by bringing him to my chest. I will make a bottle, Jungkook said before disappearing in the kitchen. Gently bounced Fong as I walked over to the living room, carefully sitting down on the couch and going at calmed him down. Just a minute, love. Dad is making you a bottle. I whispered against the sweet smelling head as I watched him smack his lips together. Jungkook walked into the room and smiled as he handed me warm bottle and sat next to me on the couch. We both gasped in awe as Fong elected on the bottle and began sucking proper eagerly. He's got Papa's appetite, he said with a grin as I leaned over to put my head against Jungkook's chest to watch our son eat. He looks just like you, though, I said, smiling. We sat in comfortable silence for the next few minutes, exchanging occasional smiles. Fang's bottle was empty, and I gave him over to Jungkook. He stood up and began bouncing on the feet, stroking Fang back to get him to group. As soon as he did, Fang fell asleep against his chest, and Jungkook smiled tenderly as he walked over to place him in cot we had put up in the living room. Are you hungry? He asked as he turned around to face me. I could heat up that lasagna for dinner. I cursingly swung up my legs to lie down on the couch. I shook my head. I think I'm going to take a nap while he's sleeping. I'm exhausted. You should sleep too. Jungkook smiled warmly as he grabbed the blanket folded on the armchair back to wrap around me. It's fine. I'm not that sleepy. Let me know if you need anything, he said before stooping down to give me a short kiss on my forehead. Jungkook's POV took every source of strength I had not to spend the entire night standing in front of crib. I had gently woken him up to eat dinner before letting him sleep on the couch for couple of hours, knowing he must be hungry after hardly eating at the hospital the previous several days. At the dinner table, we had eaten my mom's together. Young stayed attentive. In the case he heard from Fong crying in the next room, he had sent him to bed after dinner, stressing that he needed some decent rest and that sleeping on the couch for a long would do serious damage to his back. He accepted to an early bedtime after I promised to wake him up if I needed any help with and reminded me to turn on Our baby monitor had stayed up a few more hours doing some homework and giving my son before another bottle before heading to the bed. I began to panic as I placed in the wooden cot I had assembled in the nursery a few weeks prior. I knew my husband wouldn't mind getting up in the middle of night of feeding and diaper change, but I desperately needed him to sleep. Been exhausted from the delivery and he had only been able to sleep restlessly for a few hours at the hospital. He basically looked lifeless. I also know that the vibrator baby monitor I had placed under the pillow picks me. Even the tiniest noise from the nursery air wakes me up every time Theo and I had put it through its pieces together, and I had always worked. But this was no longer a test. This was my son, who was very real and very precious to me. I inhaled deeply before taking a conscious step backward from the cube. When didn't move, I started fussing. I took another step back and then another until I was out of the room and in 2 hours. Scrolled up on his side of the bed and I sat down lightly on mine to avoid startling or waking him. I sat there staring blankly at the wall for a moment until I felt his bed move and my husband's hand on my hip. Did you have any trouble putting him down? He asked, his eyes heavy with sleep. I simply shook my head and I was lying next to him in the bed. What's wrong? He asked, sensing my distress. I'm scared I wouldn't notice him crying, I said as they hung face from a deep frown. Are the baby monitors on? He asked, and I nodded once again. Nothing to worry about then, love. That thing will wake you up if he does. What if it doesn't, though? Young slid over and wrapped both of his arms around my waist, hugging me for a brief moment. Then I will hear him through my monitor and wake you up, or go see him myself. I think you are being a bit overly paranoid. Baby, we will be fine. I wasn't completely convinced, but I nodded anyway. Okay, now come on, you need to get some sleep while you can too. Thang said and gently pulled me closer to him. I'm sure you missed being the little spoon these past few months, I yawned as I walked down the stairs with and for the fourth time tonight, but it felt like that. I am thankful my baby monitor was able to wake me up every time, did something which was approximately every 2 hours before Theo even moved next to me. I headed to the kitchen with the tiny buns in my step, quickly preparing a bottle of formula and placing it in the bottle warmer. My sister had given us the baby shower. After checking the timer on the microwave, I decided to start the coffee machine as well, adding a dark roasted pot and double checking that there was enough water in the machine. A few minutes later, I was on my way to our balancing a cup of coffee and my son's bottle in one hand, Fong resting on the crook of my other arm. The sun had just risen, and there was beautiful breeze as I grinned and lowered myself onto the swing I had constructed in our backyard earlier this summer. I hurried, repositioned Fong in my arms and the bottle to his lips, sighing with relief when he launched on the calmed down instantly. I set the bottle on the ground when he finished eating and grabbing my cup of coffee to take a much needed sip before carefully lowering it to the ground to take a phone from my pocket. Even though it was still early, I knew both of our moms were probably awake and waiting to hear from us, so I took a quick selfie with Fong. I looked angered, but I flashed the brightest smile I could conjure, and the photo met its purpose. So I sent it to the both of them without further consideration. I had received messages from each of them promising to come over with food about lunchtime. While I was halfway through my coffee, when I finished my coffee, I took Fong up to my chest and gently patted the back until he broke. I was about to return inside with my cup and the baby bottle when I noticed the back door open and Theo stepped out. "You are up early," I said after clearing my throat and realizing that both of my hands were full. "Missed the both of you," he said with a shrug, and he walked to the steps to sing and sat next to me, making grabby hands to our baby right away. I let out a clutch as I moved Frank to Taehyung's arm and held out the cup for him. "Coffee?" His face Taehyung made in return was answering enough, and I smiled. "Want me to go make you some tea?" He shook his head and scooted closer to me, swing and the saying, sleepy eyes falling on the phone. "No, I just want some time with my boys." I smiled once again as I threw one arm around his shoulder and reached across with the other to rub my son's soft cheek down, and I had there for over an hour, letting the cold morning breeze color our cheeks and grass beneath us tickle our toes as we admired the boy in Taehyung's arms, who was only a few days old but had already won both of our hearts. "Hey," I said, causing him to face my direction and raised "Bros, I think we are going to be fine after all." He simply gave me a beautiful grin before leaning in and kissed me passionately. The end. The way fong is a Chinese word and there is a lot different meanings of the word, but the one I choose is fragrance. So I hope you will enjoy it. How was it? Comment me down. Bye bye.